I think the most emotional part was the initial life flashing before your eyes, and mainly focused on my daughters. I've got four daughters, and they're just young, and what am I going to miss? It wasn't until I was cornered by some coworkers who told me, cornered me in a room and shut the door and said, "Sherry, you are as white as a ghost." It was something out of the blue, never heard of it. Here's a diagnosis of a disease that's characterized by men in their 60s. And I was a woman in my 40s. I was very much on edge. It wasn't until they weren't going to give me any answers until I had a bone marrow biopsy. And I pretty much was waiting. Oh, and I also had a lymph node biopsy at that time. And so I was waiting for the doctor's call. I was actually probably calling the doctor's office, saying, "You got it yet? Did you have it yet?" And at that point, then it kind of all came together that when I saw the doctor, the oncologist, my local oncologist, he said, "You have some sort of a lymphoma, and it's a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma." And he started to explain it further, and it wasn't until I had, the results of the bone marrow biopsy, which by some crazy fact was the biopsy came back not as conclusive as they wished it would be, but it was pretty obvious that I had the increased IgM that goes along with Waldenström. One of my first steps was that I went to Cleveland Clinic for a second opinion, and there really was not there wasn't a Waldenstrom specialist there. And they said 5 years life expectancy, and I go, what? 5 years is a short chunk of your life. I just kind of waited in line, and I decided that Dr. Castillo would be the one that I would choose. And luckily I got in with him, and that was, several trips of Boston behind. The doctor spends with me, he spends at least 30 minutes. And he knows me by now, and I know him, and we pretty much have good rapport, and we talk about whatever I want to talk about, and he'll talk, and explain things. And that was where we found we came to a conclusion about what my next treatment was going to be. I'm not the only one who has to travel to see my specialist, and we had a wonderful conversation about how patients and care partners can successfully get the best care for their diagnosis. Here's a look at that conversation.
Community hospitals, they're designed to provide general healthcare services to the local population. So they offer a wide range of medical care, from routine checkups to managing common conditions and even some cancers. The care team in these settings are skilled at treating a broad spectrum of diseases, and for many patients with more common or straightforward cases, community hospitals are convenient and provide excellent care close to home. Accessibility is a big advantage here because patients don't have to travel far, as they often have a more personalized and they also often have a more personalized relationship with their care team. Now, on the other hand, academic medical centers and specialized cancer hospitals focus heavily on research, teaching, and clinical trials. So these centers are often affiliated with medical schools and are involved in clinical trials, which means they're on the forefront of new treatments and therapies. Patients treated at these centers may have access to novel therapies that aren't widely available in the community setting. Additionally, these institutions have multidisciplinary teams. So these include hematologists, pathologists, and other specialists who focus specifically on rare cancers, providing a more specialized approach. Ultimately, the best approach may involve a balance between the two settings. Patients might receive specialized consultation at an academic center while continuing their routine care and follow-ups in the community, ensuring both accessibility and the cutting-edge treatment options.
What would you consider is the biggest challenge to providing cancer care in a local community setting, let's say in a rural setting? What's a major challenge?
So one of the biggest challenges in providing cancer care in the local community setting really comes down to the availability of resources. It's not about the knowledge or expertise. So we have highly skilled specialists, myself included, who are dedicated to treating complex conditions like Waldenström's. The challenge lies more in the infrastructure and the support systems compared to larger cancer centers. We operate with definitely more leaner teams, which means it can be more challenging to coordinate the logistics of complex care or get patients enrolled in trials as quickly as we'd like. So it's not that care is any less thorough, but the resources to streamline and support those processes are more limited. That said, working closely with a cancer center, as I do, helps bridge some of those gaps. We can offer high quality, specialized care locally while collaborating with larger institutions to ensure patients have access to the full spectrum of treatment options when needed.
Are there circumstances where you do refer your patients maybe to a larger center or someplace to another hospital setting where there are more people with more extensive knowledge or more facilities that can tend to their particular circumstances?
So there are typically two main circumstances where I would refer a patient to a larger center. The first is when additional resources or specialized support are necessary. For example, if there's a clinical trial, particularly an early phase trial, that could offer a promising new therapy not available in our community setting, I would absolutely refer a patient to take advantage of that opportunity. While we do offer, like I said before, phase 2 and 3 trials locally, phase 1 trials or these very specialized research protocols are usually housed in these larger academic centers with the infrastructure to support them. So the second scenario involves treatments that require specialized procedures we don't currently offer at our center. While this isn't so much so specific to Waldenström's, right now for the majority of patients, therapies like bone marrow transplants or at the current moment CAR T-cell therapy are examples of advanced treatments that require more dedicated facilities and more specialized teams with highly specific protocols. And so these are scenarios where I would refer out to the academic center.
We're all different. There's no one case that is the same. And you're surrounded by people who have been maybe in a similar place than you, and you can listen to their story. I think when I show up at forums and they hear that I've been there for 30 some years, they're like, wow. And I've not been critically ill all that time. I critically ill in the beginning, but each time, there's little things that go on when you're doing treatment, that little bumps in the road, but nothing that was debilitating. It has become a great resource for people who have been diagnosed with Waldenström. From the beginning, it has grown to be the most people-friendly and type of an organization where you feel like they'll listen to your questions. You have somebody. There's so many different categories of help that you can get. You feel like you're in the right place.